is the death of Flubby. Already, yeah, after so long, it's been long overdue. Not really, but yeah, really. So I had a conversation last night with some folks building, actual multiverse stuff, which is really cool. Um, but they're pointing out a whole lot of problems with my ideas, with things I wanted to build, and it's unfortunate, but you know, much I wanted to do doesn't really seem realistically possible. And I'm not gonna lie, this whole thing just has me in a sort of a dark spot. You know, like I want to say I'm just being overly sensitive and stuff like that, but honestly, it's my own fault for putting so much of myself, my identity into this idea, even though I haven't really been super public with it or anything like that. It's been a sort of lighthouse for you know where I want the world to be, where I want to be, and the future. And so the original, conception of Flubby was from my own struggles with depression, with feelings of inadequacy, with feelings of, frustration with the current tools, of wanting to produce something, to create something, to, get out of my own head, but feeling like there is no way to do that. You know, I've tried all sorts of things to get my ideas out of my head, to just get out of my head, period. But there just always seems to be so many barriers and limits to, sharing my ideas and getting out there and trying to be productive and entrepreneurial and creative and stuff like that. Right. Like I said many times before, my dreams kind of started with the hover cars in, in elementary school. Um, Obsessed with the idea for a long time. But then I realized that I wasn't good at engineering, wasn't good at math, at least not to that level. And to be honest, it didn't really interest me to that level. So I had no real motivation to pursue it to the point where I could, you know, create a actual realistic prototype of a hover car, of a vehicle, or anything like that. And then, I've tried a whole bunch of things in terms of ideas, in terms of how I think the world should be, or at least what I would like the world to be, some things I would like to see in the world, and created. I had a little black book, and I wrote ideas in it every day. We did this practice. I think it was James Altucher, Altucher. I don't know how you say his last name, but that proposed creating a daily habit of writing down 10 ideas every single day, and I've done that. I did that for like two 2 to 5 years, depending on how you count it, because I didn't do it every single day. Like the first, I would fall off every now and then, but I've done that for a while. But I got frustrated again because I was like, okay, I'm making ideas. Now what, right? Where do I go from here? How do I bring these ideas to fruition? And that has been the meat of my problem for a long, long time, is having this vision, of where the world can be, ambitions and ideas and all that stuff, but not being able to produce them, not being able to do anything about it. It feels so frustrating when, you see everything going on in the world, this amazing technology, this amazing time of change and disruption and all that stuff, but you feel completely incapable of partaking. When you feel like there's nothing you can do, you know, to participate in the market, to produce your own ideas, to create a team, to, do a startup, to uh, do anything like that. And it has been and it still is really exceedingly frustrating, especially when I've actually tried. Say, oh, learn the code. All right, go and try to learn the code. Went to a boot camp for it. Read books on it. Every tried multiple languages, everything from C sharp to JavaScript to Python to Java, all that stuff. But a lot of it just didn't. Ruby. I went to a code camp for Ruby on Rails, um, but that was just all of it was just it's not for me, right? Like I didn't enjoy the process. I didn't even like I would struggle with getting things to work. Like I will understand it, the concepts of different codes, how to make this work, blah 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 blah. But when it came actually down to it, and I was struggling with the bugs and all this other stuff, it's just like even when I figured it out, I just didn't get that payoff. And again, it was like there was no motivation to continue. Um, and so I kept just searching for things that I can do to make things happen. Um, I've tried, people say try writing, try podcasting, all this stuff. I've done that. Had to maintain the blog for about 4 or 5 years now. Hasn't really gone anywhere. Maintain a podcast for about 4 or 5 years, hasn't really gone anywhere. Um, and it feels like it's just, you know, I'm just inadequate. When you're faced with the what it feels like the truth of your own mediocrity, you know, what do you do? And so Flubby has been my scapegoat, I guess. I've been putting so many hopes into it, so many ideas into this one idea. I know it has overblown, really, really blown up in terms of, what could be an MVP or anything like that. But, it's my own fault. And it's especially hard because I've always had amazing ideas, right? Not that I, not just I thought they were amazing, but I would talk to other people. I would say, "Oh, what if we did this?" Blah 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 blah, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah, blah blah blah. Go for it." Right? People always hyping you up. Like I rarely ever share ideas, and people are like, "Oh, that's dumb." Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I haven't had enough dumb ideas, you know. Um, and this becomes a sort of ego death, which is it's a good thing, I guess. It's what I experience when I meditate, get into the practice of meditation. I've been doing that, since the pandemic started and everything like that. And meditation goes a long way in helping you separate your identity, to understand what you are identifying yourself as, and creating new identities that are more flexible and more adaptable. As I was reading the book Atomic Habits, it goes into that and from different perspectives as well. Where if you identify yourself with one thing, right, as a basketball player, for instance, as a high octane athlete, and then you get injured, what then? Then your whole identity, your whole world comes crashing down, and you're not really able to get back up because you've identified yourself not as somebody who is fit, not as somebody who enjoys sports, not as somebody who, is this X, Y, and Z personality or interested in X, Y, and Z, but as a pro basketball player. So you get injured and it's game over, not only for your career, but for your life in a way. That's why, unfortunately, you see a lot of athletes, you see a lot of people in these expert kind of high levels of success. When something happens that crushes their career, their lives kind of go down the drain from there because of that identity issue. And that's basically what I was doing here. I guess it's a good thing this happened now instead of later, because I'm not successful, right? Still struggling to make things work. But that's another problem, though, right? I've dealt with poverty all my life, and for most of the time, it's felt like I would have this idea. I'm just like, oh, if I can get this to work, man, I can get out of poverty. I can get my whole family out of here, and we can be, doing our own thing. Finally be living a good life, successful life. Not have to struggle with this, that, and the other, with food, light, you know, bills, and all this other stuff. We can just enjoy life. And so that's been my problem of, I think, putting too much hope. I don't want to say it like that. Sounds pessimistic. I don't like to be a pessimistic person, you know, but just putting too much into these ideas. Um, and because of that, you form expectations. You form, you know, you think judgments, I guess. You think something should happen a certain way, and then when it doesn't, then what? Right? It's crushing. And I've known this, I've maneuvered myself around this in many aspects of my life. Um, my career has been very flexible and adaptable. Um, constantly learning, constantly trying to figure out how to create a unique brand, a unique persona, a unique skill set. But when when it comes to my ideas, my really ambitious ones, it gets really tough because it seems so good. And I talked to people who were like, "Hey, what if you had this? What if you were able to do this?" And like, "Oh my gosh, that would be incredible." I didn't stop there. I would show them like little examples of what it could be. Like for Flubby, one of the things I saw was there was like a little blob thing on a very simple what do you call it? One of those code editors. I forgot what it's called. One of those code editors, and it has like the code on one side and the visualization of what it's doing on the other. And one of them was like a little blob, and you can play with it, moving around. It had like it's basically like a line segment, I guess, but a non-rigid body. So it's like, it's a blob. You can move it around, you can bounce it, you can pull, stretch the little things and stuff like that. And I saw people messing with it. I was like, oh man, it was like, oh, this is incredible. If I could do this all day, right? Playing around with it, and I would take that and show it around to other people. Made like I used to play around with J Canvas to make simple little shapes people can pull around on the website, and people really loved that. The fact that it was so simple too. It was like dumb simple. Like I barely even know how to code. I just copied around the code, made a button so you can click to create, a shape or whatever, and people love that. Um, so I thought I was on the right track. It's not just I was just in my head with it. At least not this time. At least not in that aspect. But nonetheless, the fact of the matter that I put so much into this, it just makes it all the more difficult. And again, I know I'm putting it's not like it doesn't seem like the right thing to do or the right way to go about making a product or company or anything like that, to have all these different problems you're trying to solve, like all big problems. Like I'm trying to solve depression, poverty, loneliness with one product, right? um, but the idea of it is that we live in a connected world, right? We live in an ecosystem. We like to think that we're alone in the world, that we're individuals. And we are, of course, we are have our own minds, and excuse me, but the world is not solipsistic. We might believe it to be, but you know, the more we do science and the more we do spiritualism, philosophy, and all that stuff, you see that the world is not individualistic. We as humans uh, are extremely social creatures, and the world we live in is a social world. Meaning that everything is interplays, everything is interwoven. There's no one single cause to a problem or to a effect. there's a number of causes, a number of things that happens. And yes, there may be one major cause, right? One something you can point out that says, hey, this is the main factor of this. But there are a number of other, nuances in there that also play a fact in that. And once you try to replicate it, right, you begin to see this more and more. Like the more complex things you try to replicate, the more difficult it is to do so without taking into consideration all of the nuances, all of the other things that play into that we don't even understand play into that. So, for instance, with depression, there is, at least in my experience, right? Depression makes it really difficult for you to see the world in a non-judgmental, non-critical way, right? And we might think it's non-judgmental because part of depression is feeling apathy, feeling apathetic, where you no longer have the interest that you had or can enjoy the interest that you had. You don't no longer can see the world as positively as you did. Kind of see it indifferently. Um, but indifference itself is essentially apathy. It's a grayness. It's a thing that seeps the soul, if you will, that you know takes energy. It's very draining to be gray, to be apathetic, to be indifferent. It doesn't feel like it while you're there. It feels just like, oh, you have no energy and therefore you are indifferent. But no, the state of indifference, the state of apathy is itself draining. Because the natural way of doing things, the natural way of the world is to feel it, to experience it, right? To feel these visceral emotions and experiences. I'm pulling from a recent, podcast by Kent By with talking about process philosophy, which is, I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but just the idea is very, very interesting. But he said a lot of things. That's one of the things he said that I'm pulling from here to explain what I'm feeling here is the idea of our life being, or reality being, a set of experiences, right? Where the act of being alive is an act of experience, and not only that, but everything around you is in and of itself an experience. Again, I'm not going to get too deep into that. Just look it up. But I think it goes well into this idea of, the problem with depression is that it it actually changes your brain chemistry to where it makes it difficult for you to experience the world in a, positive light, in a good light. It makes it so that, the chemistry in your brain is inhibiting you, so you can't feel certain, you know just good stuff, dopamine or whatever you want to call it, and all that other stuff. um I didn't want to get all this into it, but when I was, in that depressed state, the act of creating went a long way in helping me get out. And I think it's because, the act of creating forces you to get out of your head and forces you to see things from a different perspective. And even more importantly, it connects you with the world. Because once you've created something and it's out in the world, other people can see that, can interpret, your feelings from it, can interpret, you know, your thoughts or their own thoughts. It can create self-reflection when you create something. And creativity, creating things, has been a staple in humanity, and pretty much probably any sentient creature, um, for as long as we can tell. So that's one of the major reasons why I wanted to start with that, to build with that. Because today, I feel like, and you look at the stats, depression's rising higher and higher, and people don't really know exactly the cause. Say it could be a number of things. Poverty is a big one. But you see depression with middle income people, with highly successful people. So I think one of the uh, one of the bigger causes for depression is this lack of creative expression, and that seems counter to the world that we live in. It seems like, hey, this is a world that we can create things all easily, right? With social media, with anything on the internet, stuff like that. But if you look at it, most of the things that we use today on the internet and with today's technology, period, is not not really a doesn't really empower creativity, right? It's a matter of showcasing, of showing off, if you will, of oh, here's this pretty thing, right? But the creative process is ugly. Creative process is visceral. It's a matter of expressing yourself, and of reflecting, of connecting with people, or with the object, with the art, the the medium. And we don't really see that today. How do you? Yeah, we don't have to get further into that, but that was kind of my mindset with that. Um, Another aspect of depression is loneliness. Is the fact that you know most people today don't have close friends, right? They don't have a set amount of people who they can rely on and talk to on a daily basis, who can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, or really this is at least in the Western world, and I think it's in the Eastern as well. You see, suicide rates and stuff like that in Japan and stuff like that. But loneliness is a huge, huge factor as well, right? People feel isolated more than ever in what's supposed to be the most connected world we've ever lived in as a species, right? Where you can easily pick up a phone and call somebody across the world, where you can go online and talk to people, right? Why is it that in this world of extreme connectivity, more than ever, we feel isolated? And I believe, and the research shows, that it's because of a lack of community, a meaningful community, of the fact that we don't kind of live and breathe with each other on a daily basis like we used to. These computers are cool and great, but they don't create that presence that you have when you're in the room with somebody, right? They don't create that visceral. I just love that word. The visceral feeling of being with somebody in the same in their presence. And it's something we don't fully understand, but some of the research shows that people who have less, social, who have less of a social circle, their everything from their mood to their health to their mental health, their mental state, like their physical health and their mental health, it all degrades. Like, literally, loneliness takes off years from your lifespan. You know, they see this with older people who live in retirement homes and are never really visited or anything like that, versus people who live with their family, or are visited on a regular basis in retirement homes and stuff like that. And you see this with youth, a lot of young people. This is something that I've experienced, where in school, anything like that, even though I never got bullied or isolated like that by my peers, it's always cool with people, but I didn't really connect. And part of the reason is because I lived so far away. Like, I had to take a shuttle bus, like a 2-hour bus from my home to school. And so I would almost never, get to hang out with people after school, go to people's houses, anything like that. It was either home or school. And I have a big family, which is fortunate, but we're all on different mindsets. And for most of human history, right? We lived in these small communities where you see the people who you're living with, working with, eating with, you know, um, going through challenges with, right? Every single day. Literally see them. It's not like right now I'm fortunate enough to live in a neighborhood, a nice little neighborhood. I say it's nice because it has sidewalks. I've never lived in a neighborhood with freaking sidewalks and freaking light posts and stuff like that. It's amazing. But still it's I mean it's all right. Like neighbors are nice here, but I don't walk outside and then like there's no park, right? There's no central park in this neighborhood. So I don't walk outside and see my neighbor every single day. Like I could be looking at this house across the street, but I might never see them, right? And we're in each other's houses. Even when we come out, to walk or to get the mail, you're not sitting there hanging out with your neighbors. And I think a lot of people are like that, where we live in these so-called neighborhoods, yet we don't often communicate with our neighbors. We don't often hang out with them. We don't often, go to work with them, right? Like that's ridiculous. We don't often eat with them. We don't often play with them, stuff like that. And it's a simple idea, right? It seems like a no-brainer. Like, of course, you the people who you are around, are the people who impact your life the most, are the people that you feel close to. And so if we created the fact that we created a community in our globalized world where most people are isolated, where they're at home on their desk and their computer, and the only interaction, or at least the majority of interactions they have with other humans, is through a screen or through digital facades, through a showcase of social media. And that idea is extremely harmful. I think there's a huge problem with that. So that's another reason why I couldn't just try to solve depression with creativity and not have a community. It just seems ridiculous to me, right? Because humanity, we're creative species and we're social species. So of course they go hand in hand. Like we create together. When we create anything, we don't just sit it on the wall and be like, oh yeah, it's cool. We want other people to look at it. It's very rare where we create something and nobody else sees it and we are okay with that. It's very, very rare. um, don't get me wrong, there are artists who create music or whatever like that and never release it, but they're also creating music and then releasing it too, right? The unreleased stuff is stuff that they don't really want to share. They don't feel like it's ready to share for any number of reasons. But any artist, any creator, any person who's regularly creating things, you know, wants to share that. Another aspect that I forgot to mention before is that we create when we create, right, we're not doing so as artists per se, not everybody, right? Being able to create is a simple thing, right? And it's like talking. It's like writing. It's like just it's a form of communication. And so the fact that today, especially nowadays, that we have relegated the idea of being creative, of creating things, to the arts, to advanced 3D modeling, to you know graphic design and architecture and professions, right? Like that is harmful. That is a harmful idea because that means that the average person, and I've seen this, you can walk around today, you can ask somebody, are you creative? And unless that person has an identity where they're like, oh yeah, I wear my clothes a certain way, or I like to look at art or whatever. Unless that person is artistic in some factor, you're probably going to say, I'm not really creative. You see that all the time in like job places where you want people to come up with creative ideas, but most people think it's the designers, the marketers. They're the creative ones. They're the ones creating they're the ones with creativity. I think that's a such a silly idea. That's like saying, oh, they're the only ones who can talk. They're the only ones who can write. And I don't mean as an author, right? Like that's the whole point that I'm trying to that I'm trying to solve here, that I'm trying to address here is the fact that creativity, yes, it is a profession. You can be a professional creator, but it's also a fundamental principle of being human. And that is what I see is severely lacking nowadays. And so that's why I wanted to solve that as well. So creativity, community, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. I mean, just look at social media. We think we're building communities here, but with no actual creative outlet. People just post crap on there or really fancy stuff, or try to show off, or just try to put out whatever's on their head, their mind. But there's no process process of creativity, and the process of creativity forces you again to see things from a different perspective. It forces you to look at how is this going to be interpreted. It forces you to think about how is this going to make somebody feel. Most people, when they post something on social media, do not have that mentality. They're not thinking about how does what I'm posting right now going to make somebody feel. Just the idea of that probably is ridiculous to people. Like I don't care about how people feel with my posts. I don't care about this PC culture, right? See it's such a dumb thing to say, and I don't want to say it like that because it's understandable why people say it. People aren't dumb. It's just because it's the environment that we created. We're like any other animal. We're a result of our environment. And if our environment is inherently limiting, if our environment does not allow self-expression, if our environment does not encourage empathy, if our environment doesn't really value creativity on a fundamental level, then of course most people won't really care about it. And so the last aspect that I wanted to build was and I've been kind of going back and forth with it, was like empowerment or financial stability, or what I recently called, I realized should have been all along, is exploration. And this last piece, this last pillar, is the ability to to find um, the ability to find fulfillment. So again, this is a piece of the puzzle that I think comes together, that I think needs to be brought together, because one of the other reasons that people are depressed, that people are feeling that suicide rates are higher than ever before in human history, is because of this unfulfilling life that a lot of people live. They go through life and they feel like there's no purpose, there's no meaning, there's no visceral experiences where they go to school, they go to work, you know, and they're just working to survive, working to make money so they can feed their family. There's no appreciation of life. There's no downtime, especially now, with hustle culture, and that's something I've been into a lot, and especially because I don't like being idle. And that's another thing. If I go on a little tangent real quick, is that this whole idea of the fact of people naturally being idle, as idle minds being the hands of the devil, or whatever that quote is. It's a dumb quote. No, I know it's Puritan in a in a source, but there's a lot that goes into it that is inherently false, inherently harmful. Being idle, being able to be still, is a powerful, incredibly powerful aspect of sentience, of life, really, not just sentience, but of life, of being able to appreciate life, you know. because it's in those moments of stillness that you can reflect, that you can find that gratitude, that you can find that meaning. Because the meaning there, people like to want to think that there is some external meaning, that there is some force out there telling you this is what you need to be doing. And yeah, I think there is some sort of, inherent gifts, inherent kind of roles people can get into, and purpose that people, I think purpose driven concepts is a powerful thing, but meaning itself is self-determined. When you have these moments of silence, of stillness, you can look around. It allows you to look around, right? And observe without judgment. That's another meditation practice. It's another benefit of meditation, is being able to observe without judgment, being able to just look at the world and be like, wow, find that wonder, right? And if we're always on go, 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 always just trying to run the wheel, to run the race, to do things, to be productive, to make money, to whatever, feed the family, then when do we get a chance to enjoy the family, to enjoy the money, to enjoy the work? It's no wonder that people feel, you know, depressed and lonely and meaningless, because we keep trying to criminalize, or rather demonize, this concept of stillness. So that was kind of my tangent, but think it's think it's okay and good for people to be able to just sit down and just reflect, you know, to just look around and observe the world. But this third pillar, and what I'm going to call it now experience, even though before I called it empowerment or financial stability, is because fulfillment is more than just happiness, right? It's more than just satisfaction. It's it's the experience of living, of going through life, going through challenges and overcoming them, right? Experiencing good stressors, because there's a difference between good and bad stressors, but experience good stressors that, force you out of your comfort zone, and then show you that, hey, this can be your new comfort zone. And then you go out of there and you keep, it's a cycle of growth. It's a process of being able to go through life and enjoy the process of going through life, as I think Alan Watts puts it, seeing it as a dance, or as I forgot who wrote this, but seeing it as an infinite game, where the game loop is a inherently enjoyable process, where you face challenges, or you have an idea of what you want to do, you go and pursue it, you face challenges, you overcome it, and you learn from it, and you do it again. As you learn from it, you get a better idea of what you want to do. So it's a spiral. It's a circular process that we really enjoy. That is, you know, it's how we find the meanings, how we find the appreciation for life. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that moment in that game loop, to just be like, stop for a second and look at what you've done, look at what you overcome, look at, the people in your life, look at the things that you're doing, look at the world around you, then you'll never be able to appreciate that loop. Then instead of seeing that as a loop as an infinite game, as a process of constant growth and enjoyment and all that stuff, then you see that as a spiral downwards. You see that as a running the rat race, running in circles, where you're going and going but not going anywhere, right? Because even when we dance, it's a two-step process. It's a movement, going from one area to another, you know, feeling it in your body. And if you can't do that, if you don't realize, that you are in control of this movement, then you just feel like a puppet. You just feel like you're being controlled. How many times you hear, "Oh, the government is trying to do this. This person is trying to do this. My company is controlling me." Blah blah blah. We have all these ideas of all these fears of control, of being controlled, of being seen as cogs in a machine, because that's how we created our environment. We created our environment to where, our homes are just boxes, our cars are just boxes, our work is just boxes. There's no creative expression there. There's no flexibility, there's no adaptability, there's no room for us to be human and allow us to break out of those boxes and create new ways and all that stuff. Sure, some people can do that, but the fact is that the vast majority of people don't have that access. And that is what I wanted to solve. It all goes hand in hand. That creative expression, that community, and that fulfillment. If you have something that is sufficiently easy to create with, you share that with each other, you share it with other people, and you create a community around it. You create that community, and now you have a sense of identity. You have a sense of self that is beyond yourself. You have something bigger to believe in. That's another important factor of being human. You can look this up as well. I think they were able to find like a neurochemical, thing for this, but people who believe in something bigger than themselves, it could be from a religious standpoint or a simple, purpose standpoint, right? A bigger purpose. People who believe in something bigger than themselves live happier lives. Again, it seems like a simple idea, but we've lost our way. We've created these commoditized, versions of everything where we no longer can appreciate things as much. Where this thing that we're creating is just going to be thrown away. It's going to be sold and bought rather than experienced. So all of that is kind of, why Flubby to me is such a big idea. It's such a powerful idea. And yeah, this is the end of Flubby as I've been creating it before. This is also the beginning because I know that there is so much in here that needs to be out in the world. But I'm realizing now that it doesn't have to be how I was thinking about doing it. It doesn't have to be through this product, not just alone. It doesn't have to be through the specific thing that I was building for other people to use. It could be a conversation. It could be a set of videos. It could be podcasts. It could be, writing. It can and can also be, part of the Webiverse, part of the XR, you know, umbrella. But it's a greater experience. And maybe I might not call it Flubby anymore. Maybe I just roll it into my identity of what I've been creating, my brand that I've been creating in terms of like being called a techno wizard of building a more delightful future. I don't know. But what I do know is that there are so many more things that are put into this that play off of each other. They're each simple ideas. The idea of just having something, having a creative outlet where the average person can, create simple things. It's a simple thing there. Having a community where you can stay in contact with people on a more visceral level. We can, you know, see, hey, when's the last time you contacted this person that you've spoken to before? Hey, what's the diversity of your your circle look like? Not just from an ethnographic or ethnic point of view, but a mental diversity. What are the backgrounds of the people around you? Because that is the benefit of living in a globalized world, the fact that we can communicate with people outside of our physical areas, outside of our little bubbles that we've built for ourselves. And fulfillment. And oh, I never really answer that, but or explain that, but I'm calling it exploration because a huge part of fulfillment is the fact that is a process of discovery, of curiosity, you know. And I've seen that, when I was talking to these people last night, of the fact that discovery is such a huge part of creativity of a of the experience process. When you discover new things, it encourages you to keep going. That's part of the again, the neurochemistry of the human mind, is that we are motivated not by some mysterious willpower. Yes, that does play a little bit of fact into it, but willpower has its limits. It's very limited what you can do with willpower, right? The bigger motivator to the human mind is dopamine. And dopamine is, if you don't want to look at it from just a purely chemical process, you know we're motivated by curiosity, by, hey, what happens if I do this? Am I going to get a reward or not? All right, we're motivated by that possibility of a reward, of finding something new that we enjoy. If we know we're going to get something good every single time, it no longer becomes as powerful of a motivator. Again, this is that dopamine thing. I'm using the dopamine thing because right now the best way we know how to describe the brain is through neurochemical constructs, even though there might be more spiritual or other ideas of describing the mind. That's what I've been studying right now, is the neural chemistry. But in atomic habits, as well as in design of everyday things, as well as in tale of doing neurosurgeons, you know all these are very different types of books, but they all describe the same problems or the same fact of the human mind, is that and that we are motivated by this dopamine rush. This dopamine rush happens when there is a cue for something, when our body see when we see something that might be a reward. The first time we see a new experience, we get a reward, and we get that dopamine rush. That body says, "Oh wow, that was great. I want more of that." Right? And as you do more of that same thing, if you get more of that same reward, then that dopamine rush gets decreased. So that's why you feel that when things get old, right? That's why delight is an always moving process. But you can't you can't have the same results every time you do something, right? You have to have variability. It's called I forget the exact thing, but basically variable reward, where you know um you might get this, or you might get that, or you might get that, you might get nothing. And they actually were able to do experiments that shows the exact amount of reward of of anticipation for reward that we can that is the most motivating for people, and that is 50%. Where 50% of the time you do an activity, or rather, when you do an activity, 50% of the time you will get a reward, 50% of the time you have a chance of not getting a reward. And that variability keeps you interested, right? It's why infinite scroll works so well. It's why notifications work so well. These are UX principles. These are ideas built on how the human mind works. Unfortunately, they're now a lot of the times they're kind of used as dark UX principles, as dark systems, where they're kind of getting you to get addicted to something, to get you interested in doing activity that you're not actually interested in doing. But it's a hack into your brain. And so to circle it back to exploration, right? When we're doing things, when we're doing activities, that's the process. It's exploration. People explore, people or humans, ancient humans explored, even though there was a high risk of being killed, of being injured, of being, lost or whatever, right? Because of that variability, that chance of a reward. And it was that anticipation of a reward. That's the important part there too, is that yes, and the reward is important because it reinforces the cycle. But after the first couple times, what's actually important is the anticipation. It's the fact that you might get something from this. This is why slot machines work. And loot boxes, and it's a ton of things we can point to. But as an incredibly important aspect of the human mind, and that we have this expectation of getting something, and that pushes us to keep going, that pushes us to explore, that pushes us to discover, to push through challenges, right? And you can um actually, yeah, I'm gonna go into that. So we in Atomic Habits, he has a quote that says something like, with the big enough why, the what doesn't matter. The big enough why, you'll go through anything to to accomplish it. And again, that goes with the higher purpose thing, that goes with the bigger picture thing. But that also goes with this exploration thing, the dopamine rush. And that the why is that reward. The why is that horizon that says that you might get that thing. You might have this amazing life, right? And that reward is a the reason why I said this whole anticipation thing is because when you set a why for yourself, and again, we see this in Atomic Habits, we see this in Design of Everyday Things, and neurobiology and all that stuff. But when you set a goal, right, that goal has to be something um, that is more like a theme. Because if you set that goal to be, this I think I'm phrasing this wrong. Let's back up and look at an analogy. Um, look at real examples in the book Atomic Habits. He points out that when people set goals for themselves, that says, for instance, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to be, a certain weight. I want to be 150 pounds, and I'm 200 pounds. I want to be 150 pounds. When you set that goal, let's say you do achieve it through whatever means you achieve that goal. Then what? Then you'd be like, oh, um, I guess I want to be 130 pounds. I don't know, right? You might feel good at that point, but then people slide back to that 200 pounds, to where they were before. This is why you see all the time where people have actually, achieved the thing that they wanted to achieve, and then they go back to where they were before, or they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, they don't they don't feel that good about it, right? And you see this all the time in any number of scenarios and put and things, right? And in Atomic Habits, he points out that the reason for this is because, again, the identity aspect. If you set your goal as one thing, this your identity as this one thing, this is akin to setting your goal for this finite thing. And once you've reached it, then you kind of crush yourself. You kind of shot yourself in the foot because now you have nothing else to shoot for. You have no more reward to look out for. And so if you set your goal as a horizon, as a theme, as a practice, let's say I want to be a healthy person. I want to live a lifestyle where I feel good about myself, where I feel like I can run, I can do whatever I want to do, right? um, when you set your goal as a practice, as a lifestyle, then it becomes a part of your life. It becomes a part of your new identity, where instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm a 130-pound person, 150-pound person, whatever," no, I'm a healthy person. I'm a physical person. And now your why is so big, it's so definite. Like we think we kind of confuse the idea of definition with, with limits, with saying you have to be this thing. But really it's a process, it's an experience. So you set your goal as, I want to be healthy. I want to, be able to run. I want to be able to do do to be this type of person. And what does that type of person do? They get up in the morning. They, they try to run and jog. They eat healthy. So you're now looking at how to form your life around being that type of person. And because that goal is something that you will never actually accomplish, right? It's not a finish line. It's an infinite game. It becomes something where it's like following the horizon, right? It's like a dance. It's something that you do. And so it becomes easier to live that type of life more sustainably and in a more long-term process where you can live your entire life just enjoying the process of being that type of person that you want to be. And that right there is the importance of, that why, of that exploration, of that experience that we're looking for. And that's why I wanted to bring that into this piece too. I haven't really pieced it together perfectly. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like there's better ways I can make this. Like the fact that this whole video is just me rambling for, I don't know, an hour or something like that. It shows you I haven't really figured it out. But that's the point. And that's what I realized, talking to these people. Um, that's why, even though it feels so bad to have my ideas crushed like that, to have this ego death, it's still a good thing in the end, because I know that for me, this idea of Flubby, this idea of the future that I have, is not dependent on me building this one thing. It's a process of communicating with people, of talking with people, of learning more, of being able to communicate my message more succinctly than an hour long rambling video. It's being able to um, take that feedback without it impacting my identity. And especially as a designer, as a person who's learning UX design, I'm learning that you can't, identify yourselves with your ideas, with your, with the things that you're creating, because you're going to go through iteration. You're going to go through, constant user research, constant, oh, excuse me, constant things where people are going to be like, "Ah, I don't like this. This is lame, or this is dumb, or whatever. I don't get it." Right. And so you literally cannot identify yourself with this one thing, with this one thing you built, this nice little feature, this cool product, with this, that experience. It has to be an exploration, an exploratory journey of constant growth, of constant learning, of constant um, just openness to change and to action. And that's what creates fulfillment right there. Is being able to identify yourself with a bigger picture that is adaptable, that is flexible, that changes as you grow, that changes with you, that grows with you. And yeah, so Flubby is dead, but long live Flubby. Thanks for watching. Bye.